United Way of Greater Atlanta. That was news to me. I didn't know that. So United Way is also a very big organization in Metro Atlanta. During her tenure at United Way, she also initiated and created the first Asian advisory board for United Way. So that's good. You left a legacy. That's awesome. Sunil Savilli, he doesn't really need an introduction. So everybody knows him as the Freedom Mela organizer, along with his 6 other member team. Did a great job at Johns Creek. He graduated with MBA from Shivani Institute of Management, and after MBA, founded the IT consulting and training company in Hyderabad, right? Yep. Okay, he moved to Atlanta in 2001 and worked at AT&T and also at Macy's as IT consultant. In 2005, he started several real estate and services companies and founded Unicorn Technology. So if you see his card, that's what he has now in 2011. And he has offices in Atlanta and Hyderabad. And he and his team were instrumental in getting the Freedom Mela at the Johns Creek Newtown Park. They brought around 21 organizations and claimed to have 10,000 people in attendance, which was awesome. So everybody was equal. There was no race, religion, sector, language barrier. Everybody was equal in that ground. Performed various cultural programs for the Independence Day at that happened on August 15th. So thank you so much for all of you being here. So my first question is, thank you so much. My first question is directed to our lieutenant. Tell me, what is the primary role of a police officer?
Well, that's a very good question, because there are a lot of responsibilities that we have to do as law enforcement officers. It's not just the traffic enforcement. You know, a lot of people unfortunately have had tickets before, right? Anybody? I have too, right? So you get tickets. But our primary role is to have a safe environment, a great quality of life wherever you're at for your community. So we're going to kind of talk about some strategies in a little bit that we are learning as law enforcement that could better help you maybe help us, because really ultimately what we have found in law enforcement is it is not just the police. It can't just be us, and that has not worked. So traditionally, just the police officer thinking they can go out there and reduce crime and solve everybody's problems is not working. We have to have a partnership between the communities. So, and I know we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about that here today.
So according to what he has described, Leng, looks like we all should feel protected. But why is there this fear factor?
I think the fear factor stems from many reasons. I think, as y'all know, the political climate in Georgia itself is not an immigrant-friendly climate. Stemming from the passing of HB 87 back in 2011, there's a lot of fear in the immigrant community. You know, fear from, the law has now become the show me your papers law. So even if you are a legal immigrant here, you also have, you might know family members, or you might have friends, that are not documented. So there is still a lot of fear out there. And not only that, I think that Georgia in itself, has enacted a lot of legislation that is very anti-immigrant friendly and very discriminatory. So there is a lot of fear out there amongst the community members, and especially communities that don't speak the language, as in English. I think there is a tendency for the mainstream to generalize Asian community as one big community. But as we all know, the Asian community, if you look on the United Nations website, is made out of over 200 languages and more. So it's hard for us because, as you know, as a we have so many pockets of different languages that comprise of us, but the mainstream community lumps us all as one. So there are a lot of people in the Asian community that are limited English proficient. So if you don't speak the language in itself, that alone is a huge barrier. If you don't speak the language, how do you get access to figure out how do you go see a doctor, for instance? So there's a lot of fear that I have a lot of cases that I can share with you that people elect not to go to the law enforcement because they have a lot of fear.
Sure.
And a lot of times, women that are in domestic violence situation fear law enforcement because, as I said, there are cases that I've worked with where women, if there are cases where the law enforcement officer actually comes to the house, but instead of arresting the perpetrator, they actually end up arresting the women and they're put in jail because they couldn't say that I'm the one, they couldn't communicate. So, there's still a lot of fear and issues.
Sure. So Sunil, based on any relationship, the foundation is trust. So where did we lose this trust between the police workforce and our Asian American community, or basically even if you zero into the Indian community?
I think we need to look into this issue on both sides. Basically, when it comes to the community side, social, economical barriers are the biggest things we need to overcome. As she said, Ms. Meena, the communication is the biggest. We are fortunate or unfortunate, we have 29 states and we have more than 75 or 80 languages, and 39 or 40 we recognized, and we do have literature for that one. So you are lucky in that part. When it comes to US, the only language we speak are predominantly we communicate is in English. And if we can't even do that one, who you're going to blame? So definitely it's one side of the story is we definitely work on our own languages, and when you are in foreign soil, we need to be, when you are in Rome, be a Roman. That's the old saying. We need to follow that one, and definitely we need to look into that prospect. And when it comes to the other side of the story, even cops or whatever the authorities were there, they can't expect everybody to speak English or everybody behaves the way they expect to behave. There are a lot of cultural barriers, social and economical things. They need to even get adopted. As per my view, the part of their training, not just the training, how to make defensive mechanism. The part of defensive mechanism is they need to be trained in social economical things of various cultures and or the district or the city where they are residing, and they need to pick up the predominant community who are there living, and probably bilingual and bilanguage. The officers has to be appointed in such a way that the partnered with an Indian guy or Chinese or anything. It depends on the areas where they are living. That way they can understand much better than what they are handling at this point.
That's a great question.
No,
So
but
that's
I have one question. Not knowing the language should not be a crime by itself. We live in a free country, and not knowing my language should not be my crime. Why? How is that
Sure.
Why am I being treated as a criminal because I don't know English?
Sure, and that's a great segue, and we're also going to answer all those questions towards the end. But that's a great segue to both of you said to a question for our sergeant. So I can speak English, but when I see a cop, before I did my program, my heartbeat used to stop. And I'm sure that's the same thing with everybody. So, and that is when we can communicate. I know English. I've not done anything wrong, right? But I can imagine Norcross being a huge immigrant population. I'm sure, I don't know, maybe there are some who don't speak English, and you may come across each of them. How do they feel?
The police or the
community. Because they can, sometimes they can understand English.
Yes,
They're not able
exactly.
to communicate.
For Norcross and for the Hispanic community, I think the issue is much bigger and much broader than the Indian community, where the Indian community can speak English. The Hispanic community, where everybody assumes that they're all Mexican, which is not true, because Spanish is the most spoken country in the world. So we have many people Central America, Mexico. We have people from the islands. We have people from South America. So it's very diverse. We all speak the same language. We all, for the most part, understand each other. But as far as the language is concerned, some officers, when they hear somebody or when they stop somebody, first of all, your heart does. The person who is undocumented has a double whammy. Not only can they not speak the language, but they also are undocumented, therefore they do not have they don't have status, but they don't have a driver's license. So now they've got so many issues going on that they fear the police, first of all, from their own countries, because these people come from very corrupt countries where the police is very corrupt. So they already come with this misconception of the police not being their friend, that they could be paid off. And so then now they have this other issue, language. They don't speak it. And many officers are under the impression that if you can say, I don't have a driver's, that you speak the language, and that they're going to say, well, this person just speaks English. They just want to pretend. When in fact, you know that a lot of things, it's lost in translation, you know, a lot of things. So they're very fearful. So they have a lot of issues, and language just is one very small part of their issue. The Hispanic community in Norcross, we have a huge Hispanic population. So practically 48% of our population is Hispanic.
So, Lieutenant, when I graduated from the CAPS program, I said to myself, these guys are not bad, and I need to get that message out. I actually became very respectful of you and respectful of the job you did than before I did the program.
Yeah.
So you can see how your minds change when you're more informed and you get involved in the process. What are we talked about a few potential barriers that's not allowing for these relationships to work harmoniously between community and policing. Just don't talk about the barriers, but also talk about the solutions to these top barriers that you've seen, and what can we do better?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we really do, and I know we were talking a little bit outside about, we all have a lot of different issues, and each culture has different issues, but the biggest thing is to get together. You know, I didn't really want to wear a uniform today. The reason why I didn't was because I've had people tell me that don't even know me that I intimidate them just by being in this uniform. So a lot of times just this kind of hinders the communication process. And really what this all boils down to is relationships and communication. And when you talk about solutions, when you came to that training and you got to see how we train, what we have to do as law enforcement officers, you got to do it. You got to practice a little bit of the traffic direction and different other things. You got to see, did you get to see somebody get tased, I think?
Yes.
So, you know, we actually have our officers that actually get tased so that they know the effects of what the equipment they use or potentially have to use can cause and feel like.
Lieutenant, can you give a specific example which has happened in recent so that we as citizens could correlate more? Because we understand the part that there is some kind of a friction or intimidation, but any specific example or a story which we would be able to relate to the situation?
So, if I understand you correctly, one of the things I guess I'd like to ask is, is anybody involved in a neighborhood watch program? So a few people in here. I really highly recommend doing that because when you look at policing, and again, we'll talk about community-oriented policing because our philosophy has changed. So I hear your question, but it's such a big philosophy, but it applies to really everything that we do. It applies, and the basic principles are getting all of us to the table because we all have issues that have probably taken years to happen. This hasn't been an overnight process, right? These have been experiences that you have had in your culture, maybe in India or you know, wherever you're from, and it's gone on for years. So it's going to take a process to mend that fence, to bridge the gap. And the best thing to do is to come together like we are today and just kind of freely talk and ask questions. And in problem solving, the biggest thing success stories I've seen, I used to work in South Fulton County, high drug area. There was a very big mistrust for the police, probably for good reason. They've had experiences where the police had failed them. And so we had a lot of issues and a lot of problems that stemmed from that mistrust. Crime rate was going up, homicides were going up. But once we got together, and the first meeting that we had was 2 people. Might not even been 2 people. I think it was just us. But it grew. We didn't give up. We stayed there. We asked people to come to the table, tell us the concerns, and then we used problem-solving techniques to slowly, gradually build that trust. So, and that takes time to do. It's not going to be overnight to be able to bridge those issues. So, I guess long-winded. I don't know if that answered your question, but you know, the biggest thing is in my mind, solution-wise, is to come to the table, let us know what your concerns are. We don't want just to assume that. And with the cultural differences, we're trying to train our officers more and more on the different cultures. For example, one culture, we were talking earlier, just looking somebody in the eye is a sign of respect. One other cultures, looking somebody in the eye is a sign of disrespect. So that's good for the officers to know that, so that when there's an interaction there, they don't think that that person is actually maybe lying to them or not telling them the truth. That's part of their culture, and that's what they've learned. So the biggest thing is just to form the partnership with the police and try to work with us to try to help deal with the issues that you're having.
So before I direct the question to Sunil, I want to sort of talk about the culture of eyes, So when I came to do my master's, I didn't know that the culture in US was you have to look into their eyes when you talk. So here I completed 2 years of my master's not knowing that, and then find that out, and then now wondering and embarrassed that all my professors thought I was lying because I never looked into their eyes. And I'm like, wow, that was a great lesson that I learned. But now I'm like, now we know. So it takes us some time to learn, get acculturated to the place we are now. So Sunil, I know Vikas was trying to ask was to sort of tell a story, give us some examples. And I'm going to direct the question to Sunil because I guess Sunil has a personal story. I'm not asking Sunil to tell the personal story, but something that the lesson that he might have got out of, and what did he do to alleviate that and towards solutions?
So you're talking about my own stories. Yeah, as I said, the first thing, when it comes to looking into the eyes, typically we ask anybody, if you ask a question, please look into my eye and tell me. So we believe that, somebody look into the eyes and say something, they'll say the truth. So thank you guys, all the time you ask everybody to look into the eyes. But females, don't ask that, Females shouldn't look into the eyes, and that's our culture anyway. Coming to this issue, as I've been asking and urging and requesting, not only on this stage and everywhere whenever I get an opportunity.
Can you hear?
Oh, can you guys hear?
Yeah.
Okay. The cultural barrier is the biggest thing. What is making a good and bad decision. No cop is a bad cop, or everybody was not good. So that's the basic fundamental thing. And end of the day, if you are in problem, if you need a solution, doesn't matter, we have to end up with the cops. But between this slight gap, the cops need to know, here in this soil, they need to reach something towards, the cultural differences and the economical, social differences, what different religion, different caste, different place and different countries people are migrated to this.